Well, my favorite thing with Dell is when he would come over when our kids were little, he'd always say that he was filthy, stinking rich Uncle Dell. And he'd reach into his pocket and he'd have some change and he'd give it to the kids and they'd get all excited, about this. And it kind of turned a little bit because one year, my oldest son, Kyle, who's not here, he had wanted a PlayStation. He asked if he could have a PlayStation for Christmas. I said, oh no, we can't afford one of those. He goes, could you call up Filthy Stinking Rich Uncle And I did, but he didn't get the kids the PlayStation. But that was my favorite.
So I'm Michael Dvoracek. I'm one of the kids who called him my filthy, stinking rich great Uncle Del. And I was just thinking of time, I remember a few years back when you guys came down here and we were hanging out on the deck at my parents' house. And then also too when we would go, when the time I went up to the cabin, how Del would just kind of go pee anywhere. He didn't care who was around. He'd just go pee off the side of the deck at the cabin or into the lake or whatever. And we were just sitting at my parents' house in the middle of town here in Sioux Falls, and he just goes off to the side of our deck in the backyard. We were all just sitting there, and he just went and peed on the side of the deck. And then as you guys left, I remember after he got down the front stairs, he needed to go again. And so right there, right off 37th and Holly, right in the middle of Sioux Falls, he just peed down a tree outside your guys' car. I just thought that was very, telling of who he was. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got.
Delray was my cousin, but he was a brother to me, along with his two other brothers, Clifford and Sidney. And Del is the one that got me my husband. Because Del and I know, thank you. Del, we're leaving from the Sioux Falls airport, and I was crying so hard because I was close to Delray. And somehow they got to sit on the plane, and he asked John if that was his girlfriend because I was crying so bad. He said, no, that's my cousin. Was she married? And he said, no. So that's how it all got started. And John and I rode to each other for 4 years. And then when he got home from the service, then we got married. And like I say, yes, the Dvoraceks did live with my parents on the farm for a little bit. And that was a chaos because Mom and Dad didn't have a big house. And yeah, he was a wonderful guy, and like they were saying, stubborn and whatever else. I have to admit that. But he will be missed.
I'm Suzanne. Del's my uncle. When my daughter got married, during the wedding reception, and this is kind of humorous because my ex-husband married a Russian girl. And so it was hilarious because they were standing there and he went up to her and all of a sudden he started talking to her in Russian. And the look on her face was unbelievable. And then she said, Russian's pretty good. So, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they had a long conversation. He was
I'm Kyle Milkey. I am Del's great nephew. And we would always go up to the lake cabin every single summer. And Del was just absolutely an entertainer. And from the eyes of just the memories that I have is his magic tricks. He was able to make a coffee mug levitate. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then he also, a saying that I always remember Del saying was, if you like the juice will like you.
I'm Dell's kid, Kent. When in high school we'd watch like Saturday Night Live because we wanted to be humored. So Dad would come down, hit the TV, turn it off, and then put out a Mad Frank tape. He'd go, now this is entertainment. He said, we officially hate all of that now.
When I lived up in Grand Forks, my son was 4, my daughter was 6, and my son, after watching Mad Frank enough, he wanted to dress up as Mad Frank for Halloween. So I made the get-up, got him as Mad Frank, Mickey as Vanilla White. I don't remember why we ended up down in Fargo, but anyway, we had Jason's costume and everything, and Dale said, okay, we're going to the studio. And so he took the kids, he went to the studio, and they got to play on the Mad Frank set. Wow. And they videoed that, and then they incorporated that into one of the movies, and I don't really remember which one it was. But the kids had a ball. They thought that was the neatest.
Thank you, that's a great story.
I do remember growing up, one thing that I remembered about Del distinctly, at least through the lore and stories that I would hear as a kid, was he was never one to really have very much of a regard for safety. He was, if there was a 10-mile-per-hour zone, he was the guy that was driving 11 all the time. One of the things that I remember when I was on the deck once at the lake cabin, he was lighting a hornet's nest on fire in the corner with a little bug spray or something and a lighter. And the first thing that comes to my head, no coverings or anything, He's Del, so he doesn't have a shirt on or anything, he's just going bare-chested at it. And the first thing that comes in any sane guy's head is, there's a million safer ways to do this. And I want to believe that he knew that as well. But he did that because he chose to do it. That was just the way that he wanted to do things, and I think that was just beautiful, that he always was just one that just kind of threw ignorance to the wind and said, I'm just going to do this the way that I feel that I want to do it. I like that about Del.
I do remember one of the fond pastimes up at the cabin on the lake, and this was every year. It'd rain one of the days and we wouldn't be fishing, we'd get bored sitting around the cabin. And Del had his little spots on different lakes, little bars or places to go, but he had a weakness for pull tabs in Minnesota. And pull tabs is like legalized gambling, kinda, in the bars. But I remember you guys sitting down and the whole table would be white with pull tabs on a rainy day. Yeah, that was always a lot of fun.
And he never made any money.
You never do.
Never won.
But look at the money he saved at the casinos.
Going to a good cause, little pee-wee hockey in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm Barb Dammit, and we'd always go up every summer to the cabin, and the first thing that Del would say to you is, what is it that you like about me? And you couldn't just give him one thing. You had to give him about 10 things that you liked about him. So that's just one memory that I have of him. Also, my kids here probably remember him always saying, I'm your rich Uncle Bill. He'd always say they're rich. So those are some memories. I always remember him sitting at the table playing his solitaire.
Oh yeah.
He liked that a lot, so we remember those memories of him too.
Then there was the beckoning cry. Berlinski! Berlinski!
What, Del? Yes, Del.
Was it Autumn? I got the nickname Autumn Delray because none of the kids got named after him.
Yeah.
I was teaching in Madison, Wisconsin, and Del was teaching his senior year at August. So he called me one night, and said, I broke my Achilles tendon. And it was 5 weeks before we were to get married. And I just said, oh good, that's great. but I didn't believe him. I thought it was another trick of the evening. And he flew to Madison, Wisconsin, because that's where I was teaching, and we were going to drive home together in my car. And he gets off the plane with the cast all the way up. So I thought, you really were kidding. You really did vote. So, and he said, I really don't want to have a honeymoon with my cast on. And I just said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. So he had to sign a paper a couple of days before we got married, that the doctor would then would be relinquished of any problems if he goes on a, so he was covering his push. But anyway, so he did, and then we went fishing. Oh, he gave me a fishing pole for Christmas. For my wedding gift, a fishing pole. I found out later that somebody had given it to him. Oh, he's a man of truth. Yeah. Anyway, then he was going up and down the fishing. We were going to go fishing. It was a steep thing, and I thought, I can just see he will break that, and I'll have to go back. But anyway. That was kind of the beginning. I should have been a red flag, right? Okay.
It was a red flag.
It was. Well, anyway, I just wanted to.
But he's also the one, when John was supposed to have his back surgery in Sioux Falls.
Oh,
They
yes.
had him all prepped up to go into surgery, and you gotta wait. So they pushed him into the hallway. He waited, and then we found out it was Delray that delayed it because he come in emergency.
With his broken tendon.
So he's the one that
He's the one
John's.
that screwed up John's surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he kind of had a way of doing those things.
What do they call that, upstaging?
Yeah, he got upstage. Yeah, that's what he had to do.
If he ever got upstaged at the cabin, he would look at me and say, don't you think you need to go home now? Yeah, the beavers.
The beavers.
The beavers, yeah.
Yeah.
He was shooting them out the boathouse, right? They were out in the boathouse. And right on the other side of the boathouse is another house.
Yes, they've let us know. Did you hear gunshots?
Right.
We get the gun away from him.
Well, he would shoot those birds that were like too. What were those birds, remember? There was some birds that were, what? Crows? I don't know, there was some birds, and he was sitting on the deck, and he was shooting these certain birds that were, they were pests. He didn't like these birds, and he would shoot those birds.
He also didn't like the rabbits in our yard, which we were on Southgate Drive.
Shot them too
So
in the yard.
we shot, and the neighbor reported it.
Oh, great.
So the police comes out and said, somebody shooting a gun
Can't
out?
shoot a gun.
Don't know anybody. He should have been jailed, I think.
I'm Ken Mielke, and I do remember that very first time that I went up to the cabin with Cheryl and her family, and we'd play chicken in the water, and Kent was probably, 9, 10 years old, and so Cam would have Cheryl on his shoulders, I had Kent on my shoulders, and we were playing chicken in the water. I'm pretty sure I couldn't do that today.
Well, we used to get on that. We'd get Cheryl and I would get the two people on the inner tube, and you almost risk being impaled by that giant, whatever.
But did anybody else feel like they were going to die when they were going to have a campfire at night?
Yes.
I know where it is.
We'd always throw
A gallon of gas and then took the match.
Clean it backwards.
Oh my gosh.